continue.
All right. Is everyone in or are they still coming in? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Before I open the meeting, call to order, and read the whole preamble, I would like to acknowledge the loss of our town treasurer, who was supposed to be honored and at Tuesday's select board meeting because she was supposed to retire this Friday. And instead of being honored, they ended up saying a few words about her and her passing. And so I would just like to acknowledge what an important part of our town government she was, and I would like for us to just have a moment of silence. Okay.
She was a great lady. I had many dealings with her because of the scholarship committee, and there was, boy, oh boy, anytime I asked her for anything above and beyond, she was always, absolutely, I can do that. Absolutely. She was an amazing, amazing person. So, yep.
Unfortunately, I did not ever have the chance to interact with her. All right, so let me go through the script. As chair of the Maynard School Committee, I need to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Branley.
Here.
Jessica Clark.
Here.
Ethlyn Houlihan.
Here.
Natasha Rivera.
Here.
Lydia Clancy. Here. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Colleen Andrade.
Here.
Jeff Ferranti.
Here.
Jennifer Gaudet.
Here.
Brian Haas.
Here?
Is Wayne here with us tonight?
No.
No.
Mike Barth is with us.
Okay. Were we expecting Mike to be here tonight?
Well, Mike is supporting the middle school teacher, so yes.
Oh, for the IXL. Okay, Mike
Correct.
Barth. Excellent. I think we need to hear his voice, don't we, for the record?
I think so.
Unmute.
Yep, I'm here.
Great, thank you. This open meeting of the Maynard School Committee is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature a citizens' comment period. For this meeting, the Maynard School Committee is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the district website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and please take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Additionally, please let the chair know if you are recording or broadcasting this meeting prior to doing so. Please raise your hand in the participants box now if you plan to either record or broadcast this meeting. All right, I do not see any hands raised. So I am going to assume no one is broadcasting or recording. Most of the supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body are available on the Maynard Public Schools District website under School Committee Agendas SC Agenda 2020-21. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Meeting ground rules. Before we go to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for the effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold off speaking until your name is called, and remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, including colloquy with other members, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Citizens' comments. Any citizen wishing to make a comment to be read during a virtual meeting and entered into the public record may do so by emailing comments to comments4sc@maynard.k12.ma.us. And that's comments for SC, numeral 4, all one word, no spaces, at maynard.k12.ma.us. Comments need to be emailed in advance and will be received up until the citizens' comments agenda item is addressed. Your email must include your first and last names and street address in order for it to be read. Emails without names and/or addresses cannot be read. To ensure that your statement is read in its entirety, it is suggested that you limit it to approximately 350 words. Statements longer than 350 words may be cut short at the 3-minute mark in the interest of time, but will be submitted for public record regardless. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or 350 words to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to be heard. The chair will read only one statement from each citizen. However, citizens can submit any additional comments for the public record by providing a copy to the chair via email up until the end of the meeting, specifically stating their desire to have these additional comments included. Please be aware that the citizens' comments agenda item is a devoted time for the school committee to hear from the citizenry. As such, its structure primarily supports unidirectional public recording of citizens' comments rather than a bi-directional conversation. Okay, I am now calling the meeting to order via roll call. Do I have a motion? Do I need a motion to open?
No.
No. Okay. Mary Branley.
Here.
Jessica Clark.
Here.
Bethlyn Houlihan.
Here.
Natasha Rivera.
Here.
And Lydia Clancy here. Okay, we are now going to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining in an open meeting. If an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the government's bargaining position as determined by the chair, and I so determine, the school committee will return to open session. And this, I'm citing Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23B, 3, Reason 3. All right, so we should only be gone for about 15 minutes if you want to hang out and wait for us. Colleen, you ready? All right. Now I can speak. Okay, everyone, we're back.
I'm trying to unmute everybody at the same time. Who else? Where's Jessica? Oh, Brian, you too. Okay.
We ready?
Alrighty.
Okay, we need to take a roll call vote to enter into executive session. So, Mary Branley.
Yes.
Jessica Clark.
Yes.
Bethlyn Houlihan.
Yes.
Natasha Rivera.
Yes.
And Lydia Clancy. Yes. Okay. See you over there.
Okay. Oh, we need the breakout room.
Yep, she's doing that. Colleen needs to invite us.
Sorry, Colleen. Thank you.
And that was.
All right. Is
All right.
everyone back? Let's see. Am I missing anybody? I don't see Bethlyn.
I'm here.
Oh, You're right there in the middle. That's why I missed you. Okay, we're back. Thank you for waiting. So our next item of, do I need to take a motion to start open session again, or do we just go?
No, because
All
we
right.
need a motion to end executive session and a roll call there, and we're good here.
Okay, so next order of business is approval of minutes, and without objection, I would like to accept with edits the minutes from the 10/15/2020 and the 10/29/2020 meetings. Are there any objections?
I did have an edit I wanted to, actually, for the October 29th
Mm-hmm.
meeting, under the urgent business. The sentence that indicates the school committee has been asked to vote to allow Maynard students to play against teams in towns that are in the red, but where the school has no rate of infection. I would like, and I added this there so Colleen can amend. The school committee has been asked to vote to allow students to play against teams within their town pods that are red, where the school has no rate of infection. It was indicated that there would be no postseason competitions.
All right, any objections to that? All right, so do I have a second to accept the meeting minutes of October 15th and October 29th of this year
With
with
edits.
the edits?
Second.
All right,
And I wasn't here on the 15th, so I can't vote on that one, but I can vote on the 29th.
okay.
So if we clump them together.
So should I separate them out, Jen? Because I wasn't here on the 15th either.
Either that, or if you want everyone to be able to vote, then yes, you need to take two separate votes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the two of you can abstain on the entire motion. It's up to you.
I mean,
I'll make a motion that we accept the October 29th, 2020 meeting minutes with edits, as I indicated.
I'll second that.
okay, roll call vote. Mary Branley,
Yes.
Jessica Clark,
Yes.
Bethlyn Houlihan.
Yes.
Natasha Rivera,
Yes.
and Lydia Clancy. Yes. I was
Okay.
at that one. Okay,
Right. So I'll make a motion that we accept the October 15th, 2020 meeting minutes as they are noted.
and do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, roll call vote for those who were there. Mary Branley.
Yes.
Bethlyn, were you there?
Well, she can still vote. She can just abstain or.
Bethlyn Houlihan.
I'll abstain.
Okay. Jessica
There.
Clark.
Who's there?
I will abstain.
Okay, well, I have to abstain too because I wasn't there. So who was there?
Bethlyn, myself, and Natasha. So there's.
Okay, so Beth,
Thank you.
I was like, we had to have 3 people there. I mean, we had a meeting.
I missed.
so do we,
God.
Jen, do we have to rewind? What do we do now since she said abstain?
No, so
Did she change her?
I can.
you want
change
to
my
amend your vote, Bethlyn?
Yes, I'm really sorry. I was trying to. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Natasha Rivera.
Yes.
Lydia Clancy, I abstain. All right.
I kept thinking it was Friday all day. I tell you, being at home all the time, you just lose your sense of things. So I apologize to everyone on this call. This does not mean that I'm not paying attention to things. Okay, sorry.
All right. All right. And then without objection, I would like to accept the warrants 21-026 and 21-027.
I just have a question. Was the 027 approved yet? I thought that was was that just sent out today?
No, that was 028.
Oh, 028. Okay, got it. Okay.
So in the agenda, it says 028, but did you
Right.
not have people that approved that one?
Where does it say 028?
Colleen had updated the agenda and it said 026, 027, and 028.
Oh, I don't have that.
Okay. So we're just going to do 026 and 027 then.
Yeah, because I don't I wasn't told that we had all the signatures for 028.
All right.
All right, so. Do we have a second? Did
think-
we have a motion?
I
Yes.
don't think-
If it's without objection.
Okay, so does anyone have any objections? No. Yes, no, no. Okay, good. We've accepted those. 026, 027, warrant of FY 2021. Now we go to citizens' comments. And I believe we have 4. Before I do that, Colleen, someone emailed me and said they've been waiting to get into the meeting.
I think
There it
that
now.
was during executive session.
Okay, so
What about urgent business? Is there any, because that was the next item after the warrants.
okay, so no, there is not.
Okay.
I sent an email earlier about that.
I didn't know if you had any other urgent possible. I'm guessing there's other things
no.
that could be going on.
No urgent business. Okay, and now, so the first,
And also just the public, just it's helpful for the public to hear that as well.
okay. First one tonight is Hillary Griffiths of 14 Mayberry Road. Hello, my child is not currently a student at Maynard Public School, but as a resident, I am still impacted by decisions made in town. As a single parent whose child with special needs has been home full-time since March, I understand how incredibly difficult it is for families to handle childcare needs without school and how hard it is for children to learn virtually. I really want my child in school full-time. However, despite Governor Baker's claims that schools are not responsible for spreading coronavirus, there is no denying that the rate at which COVID has spread has increased dramatically since schools resumed in person. Regardless of whether school itself is causing the spread or if in-person schools are causing other changes which then increase the spread of COVID-19, it is clear that as schools add in-person students, the rate of spread in town and throughout the state and country increases. As you make your decisions about adding in-person schooling, canceling in-person schooling, etc., please keep in mind the impact of those decisions affect not just Maynard students, but the Maynard community as a whole. As the number of active cases in town increases, the likelihood of elderly or immune compromised community members coming in contact with an infected person at the grocery store, bank, pharmacy, or doctor's office increases. This can and will increase the likelihood of fatalities among these community members. Please do not be swayed by parents who claim that those families who do not care about the virus should be able to go to school full-time in person, and those families who recognize the seriousness of the virus should just keep their kids home. The virus doesn't work that way. Besides the fact that the school should care about the best interests of all kids, even those whose parents have wonky priorities. The school needs to consider how decisions about in-person schooling impacts the community as a whole. Thank you, Hillary. Okay. Next, John Skogstrom, 241 Great Road. Members of the school committee, less than a month ago, many of us were watching the state COVID map, hoping that Maynard could avoid a red label indicating a dangerous level of virus activity in our town. Since then, the state has changed the coloring scheme, but in the past 7 days, our town has seen levels of infection that are literally quadruple what would have classified us as red less than a month ago. The virus is surging, and experts are warning that this horrifying trend is likely to intensify with the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday. I know that there are voices, including our governors, who are urging you to open schools more fully at this time. Many of these people, again, including our governor, cite as fact that the virus doesn't spread in schools. This so-called fact is heavily disputed. A recent study conducted by the University of Edinburgh found that children returning to classrooms was followed by an average 24% rise in viral transmission. Please note that we are not talking about a 24% rise in cases, but rather a 24% rise in the exponential rate at which infection numbers rise, a far more dangerous trend. Now is exactly the wrong time to bring more students into the schools. Now is the time to watch. Let's see if COVID-19 cases do spike during the holidays. Let's see if deaths, as they did in the past, rise while lagging behind the surge in cases. Let's see if our hospitals, as they did in many places in the spring, become overwhelmed by this rise in cases. When these trends start moving in the right direction, then is the time to discuss sending more of our kids to school. All of this is happening when the end is in sight. Until recently, it was uncertain whether an effective vaccine could be produced and in what time frame. None of us could have any clear idea how long we would have to mask, isolate, sacrifice. But recent good news indicates that we are talking about months, not years, until a safe and effective vaccine is distributed. We have also seen that COVID-19's transmission is reduced in warmer months. Now is the time to flatten the curve. To exercise care during these cold holidays when the danger is most extreme. To give our healthcare system some time to prepare vaccines and increase medical capacity. We have lost hundreds of thousands to this disease already, and maybe the magnitude of that number numbs some of us to the fact that we have the opportunity to save tens of thousands of lives by being prudent. I urge you to resist increasing the number of students in our schools until it becomes clear that we are moving in the right direction, until we have this pandemic under control. Sincerely, John Skogstrom. And our third comment tonight. Barry Roach, 9 Rice Road. The last time I attended this meeting and spoke with you, I did so on behalf of the coach. When I last spoke to you, I was not aware of any postseason tournaments or competitions or plans to have them. Other towns are participating in pod championships. For some reason, again, not shared with us, we are not. I met and talked to a parent at a soccer ID camp who told me about the private competition for high school age kids. Marketing and legal representations of things are not the same thing. This is being marketed differently from its legal status, not a post-season varsity playoff. I was held accountable for poorly phrasing a conversation I had with the AD. My personal emails were read to the school committee and principals without my consent or ability to comment. The principal made the same mistake in his email to the school about the girls' soccer program. Quote, "We caught the error and were able to communicate the correction to the players and families of the girls' soccer team, meaning that no players had to quarantine or miss their cohort school days." When he stated that the girls' soccer team did not miss any school, he was wrong, as they were incorrectly quarantined on Thursday, 11/5/2020. The school has misrepresented the competition I brought to their attention, saying it breaks many state rules. This has scared parents and is not factually correct. This competition follows all state guidelines. The school is threatening students with punishment of 14 days at home if they participate. This has scared two 16-year-old boys and one 17-year-old boy into not participating. 30 kids wearing masks playing a moderately safe sport is safer than 100 people staying indoors for 40 minutes shopping at Market Basket in a nearby town. As a result of trying to enter a team in a competition that follows all state laws regarding COVID and helping kids get outside and play a safe sport wearing masks, I have been targeted for criticism and personal attacks. I got a phone call from the principal of the school telling me he was disappointed in my behavior and surprised that someone like me would behave this way. I was accused of sneaking around trying to organize this when, in fact, I asked the AD directly if he wanted the team to participate. When he said no, I told him my intentions to enter a private team as a private citizen not affiliated with the school. I saw a Facebook post the next day criticizing this competition and calling out the soccer program again. We tell kids not to post things online about each other, but somehow the school committee and athletic director feel it's okay to post things on Facebook condemning and misrepresenting behavior of ordinary citizens. As a result of this posting and emails, parents have received texts accusing of putting the town at risk. This needs to stop. The school committee and athletic director should partner with the parents instead of trying to decide for them and lecture them on their private behavior. I am a responsible citizen who has been unable to see his family for over a year due to the following guidelines of not traveling out of the country. And that's where it ends. All right. And okay, he does have a follow-up email that says, I have concerns about this process as writing an email does not allow me to ask questions or respond to them. I do not feel comfortable making an exception to this rule.
I do not either.
What?
That's not the, citizens' comments is not intended for that purpose. And I know we have not allowed that action for other areas, equally concerning to those who are sharing. So I think we need to be consistent in our practice.
Yeah, I agree. So with that, we now are going on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, we're on, I'm on. And let me check the bottom of the screen. There are only 24 people here. I'll have to make my next report really much more exciting. Maybe I'll put some graphics into it or whatnot to see if we can get those numbers back up. See, Bethlyn like that. I saw that face.
People like videos too. You can.
I do like videos. I'll
With
bring some
music.
of those with music, but we need to change the background music.
Well, just so
Yeah.
you guys know, Wayne and Brian did commit to wearing some holiday sweaters when we get our budget presentation. So he will liven it up in the future.
Ugly holiday sweaters they committed.
And that's on the record too now, just so you know, Brian.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to include Jeff as well.
Oh, there.
So let's talk about some real things in terms of the superintendent's report. What's new? COVID is new. The numbers in town are substantially higher than they have been. So one of the citizens' comments that reflected on that, absolutely. Actually, today they were up at 19 and 2. So they are going up significantly in town. Lucky for us, they are not, that is not replicated in the schools. So what we're seeing in the schools doesn't match that. We're grateful for that. And we think that the combination of our hybrid programming, our continued 6-foot physical distancing, our mask wearing, cleaning protocols, and really being vigilant about that from, on the buses, at school, in the halls, how kids are behaving, how teachers are behaving, is really keeping everybody safe. So if I look at the staff and students, we've had a lot of, in terms of staff, we've had about a total of 20 staff quarantined for different numbers of time, a day or more. We've only had 2 staff test positive since the beginning of this year. And students, we've had a lot of student quarantine, and that's more at our request, if you will. We've had 98 students quarantined for either 1 or more days, and we play this safe. So often it's a classroom or of a cohort that needs to quarantine. Luckily, we've only at this point had three students test positive. So our numbers in the buildings have remained very low, but we are, let's say, we are optimistic. I am optimistic that we can get to the holiday break by staying the course. So we're not looking at, can we expand right now? We're hoping that what we're doing will continue to keep our numbers low inside of school, that students and staff will remain safe, and that we will be able to maintain our hybrid programming from now through the holidays. And we revisit it honestly every day. Unfortunately for us, every day the numbers tick higher. So it's not working in a situation where we can bring more kids in right now. And realistically, when we talk about it, we talk about mid-January. So a couple weeks after the holiday break, that's when we'll really start to see what happened with the numbers. And did people stay home, or did they go out and have large gatherings? We don't know. But I think that's probably the highlight of the superintendent's report, is really, what are we doing? We're continually looking at it. We're continually reassessing it. And right now we're in a holding pattern and just staying the course.
I have a question, Brian. I know that some districts have taken approaches where they've either asked families to report travel plans outside of state, or some schools have preemptively decided to go remote in the period between Thanksgiving and the holiday. Is that something that the district is not entertaining to do?
So we've talked about that. We've done on the listserv for superintendents, about 90 superintendents responded a couple of days ago to that exact question of going remote. And honestly, 89 districts responded. 76% said they were not planning to go remote. 12% said they weren't sure yet. Nobody's really committed to going, of those that responded anyway, of going remote. I think people are, if they can, they're trying to stay the course. And if the numbers really change within an individual district, then they would obviously have to transition to remote.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Some positive happenings, and there are lots of positive things going on
Can I
besides
ask one
COVID.
question quickly?
Yeah,
Sorry.
please.
I was raising my hand there and
I didn't see it. My
that's fine.
apologies.
In regards to the letter today about students needing to quarantine if a siblings class is quarantining, obviously when it's a whole class, it's quarantining. That whole class is going to be in remote learning, correct?
Correct.
Both cohorts are. So for that sibling, where it's only one student from the class versus an entire class, they're not going to have access to that. So how are we going to bridge that kind of equity gap?
So I'm not sure I'm following so if somebody, a student tests positive, or a student, right?
Yep.
Is symptomatic, their sibling would be required to stay out.
Correct.
And then
But if it's so the sibling who has the positive in their class, their whole class will be remote along with the teacher. So they'll be remote teaching for, 4 days live a week. Whereas if it's just a sibling and that teacher, it's one child out of the class, and that teacher is still teaching the hybrid and remote kids, they won't have access to, they'll basically be homesick versus in a remote model for at least 2 of those days.
I think don't all grades have remote model anyway, so they would just be joining the remote potentially.
Yeah.
Is that what my understanding?
Jennifer?
No, we'll let Jennifer, because they won't do that exactly. So I don't confuse it anymore, because we've gone round and round on this for hours.
Does
in
it
the
make
last
sense
2
how I'm
days.
wording it,
Yeah.
Jennifer? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so in grades 4 through 12, they'll just stream into the classes as they would normally. For Green Meadow, we still feel pretty strongly that having students stream into the class from home while some students are in the class is not going to be an effective learning model. So what we're doing is we're establishing time where the teacher and or paraprofessionals or other service providers or specialists will be able to assist the students in completing that work so that they won't be home for the entirety of the time without access to a staff member.
Okay, so there will be some way to bridge that gap. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thanks. So in terms of some other, so that is a good, I'm glad you brought that up, because we did send a letter today to parents and staff just about, and it kind of addresses Natasha's question as well, in terms of just reminding them of the travel advisories, asking people to be really thoughtful about what they do over the Thanksgiving and the winter break. And it's in line with what the governor's asking people to do as well.
So another question too about the health checks, because they ask about just only certain states. Are you thinking of potentially, or the nurses amending that to ask about travel anywhere within the 40, like once after Thanksgiving, so that you would be able to capture, because it's really anywhere out of state, correct?
Right. Yep.
And so the health checks only ask for particular ones. I'm just wondering if there's consideration to amend those.
Yeah, we'll end up updating that based on the governor's recommendations and what he lists on the travel advisory site for the mass.gov.
Okay.
Yep. And I could go on with some other positive things here, because there are many. One of them at Green Meadow we'll just throw out there would be the amount of communication between the teachers and the parents has been a success as of late. So we want to recognize that. Lots of hard work goes into that. The middle school, we have Mr. Barth here, and I could put him on the spot, but he's already got a job in introducing Miss Bailey shortly, so I won't make him do that. But they've started using these Wacom Intuos tablets to really help engage with the kids, which I don't know a whole lot about these yet, but I will learn more. One of the other key things that he shared had to do with attendance. Attendance is really high. It's above 90% every day at the middle school for kids who are supposed to be in their cohorts. So the fact that this is as challenging as it is, the fact that we have 90% plus kids attending when they're supposed to, we're excited about that. We'd like it to be 100, but we're going to take what we have and work with it and move forward. In terms of the high school, and I think you guys have this in writing, but there was a Mass Department of Transportation annual video competition, which they do. Exciting. They created a public service announcement around driver safety. It's known as the Safe Streets Smart Trips, the high school video contest. They have a 9th, 10th grade division and an 11th, 12th division. This year, and literally hundreds and hundreds of kids submit throughout the state. We were informed that 2 of our students, Ronan and Jeanette and Kyle Moynihan, have been selected as a top 3 video in the junior senior category for driver's rap, which we'll get you copies of in the near future. And Evelyn Hickey was selected for keeping you and others safe in as a top 3 in the freshman sophomore category. So even in the middle of COVID, people are doing cool things and they're being selected and they're coming out of Maynard. So it's things to be proud of. So thought I would tell you that. Other things that we will update on next time will be, we are snow days. We'll update that in December. And other than that, I don't really want to take a lot more time because I want to turn it over to, turn it back to the chair, actually, is what I'm going to do. And because we're pretty excited to get to Mr. Barth and Miss Bailey. But at this point, I turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yes, I'm
I
sure.
just, the information, are we not gonna, are we skipping? Is that what we're saying here?
Are we skipping what? Sorry.
Number 3.
We don't have to, so number 3, so I think we sort of addressed, it was already addressed earlier today. It had to do with athletics and specifically competitions that are not school supported. So it was just clarifying that if there are athletic events that are occurring outside of the school's purview, that's exactly what it is. So it's not something that the Maynard Public Schools nor the school committee have given approval of, etc. That doesn't mean we don't support that, hypothetically, like the concept of kids playing, but an actual event or whatnot, the school or the school committee is not supporting. The ones we are supporting, quite frankly, we're pretty clear that the MIAA has made a recommendation. They've looked at all of the data. Ms. Gaudette is on one of the committees that helps inform them. So when they come out with a recommendation, that's our authority, the authorizing body that we report to for athletics. So when the MIAA says, yes, you can do this, or no, you can't do that, that's what we abide by. We don't know about any non-school related competitions. Right. So I just wanted to be clear, because this had come up earlier in the week, that we're not judging it. We're not anything about it, besides being clear that if it's not a school sanctioned or a school committee sanctioned event, we don't have any control over it, period.
And we don't know if the Board of Health, the local Board of Health has been consulted either about the state. And that was one of the stipulations for us continuing or extending the fall season, was having input from the local Board of Health.
And just to be clear, our teams who did continue, given the school committee vote, followed all the rules, did exactly what they were supposed to do, and had a great end of the season.
Awesome.
So I have a question about that, because I know that they had guidance that just came out today about that spoke about youth sports, and I shared it earlier. I'm guessing that's part of going to be factored in with MIA, but it has some indications there about, folks who are, arranging and expectations of coordinating with Board of Health. I guess what I would want to make sure that's clear is that if there are concerns, I remember early in the year, you had Lincoln Sudbury, they had concerns raised where there were gatherings and students were in attendance, that the students could not be identified. There was no information, and the school had to go remote as a result of that. Going remote is not a punishment. I want to make sure that that's the other part too. It's a safety consideration that is intended to protect people. So I guess I just also want to make sure that that's not how it's being framed in any conversation, is that it's a punishment to anyone. It's intended to keep folks safe. But I think that when information is brought to the attention of the school committee or administration that there potentially are gatherings of students that could potentially cause a safety issue to impact our student body or our staff, that recommending the Board of Health to look into it is not an unreasonable thing to consider. I think we probably should be, that should be a protocol.
I think that's something we'll need to discuss at a later date. I don't know that we have enough information to make that decision, right?
I don't think we would need to decide on anything except for just letting the Board of Health give information to them so they take action and look into whatever it is on their own. We are not health experts in that regard. And so that's what I'm asking, is that we allow the health experts, we share information with the people that we partner with, and then they would end up looking into the matter under their purview.
Okay.
And we're in constant communication with the Board of Health. We talk to them about our programming in our school, etc. So there's constant communication with the Board of Health.
I'll be interested to hear the December 3rd about the winter sports, the next session and that. So we'll hear from Brian at that point.
Yep, because he'll know more actually as of tomorrow.
Brian
The
B.
other Brian. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Brian 1 and Brian 2. I think we
We came up with that. That's good.
Or Brian A versus Brian B. That works too. Yep.
Yep, whatever you want, we can make work.
Thank you.
Before I start my report, I have a quick question. So I understand that Fowler's librarian is retiring in December.
Correct.
What I haven't seen a posting for her replacement. Is that going to happen, or
We have a plan for that.
you have a plan for that? There's an app for that?
Not an app, a plan.
Okay.
She's a great lady. She'll be missed also.
Is that a plan that we're discussing or no?
Not right now, it's not.
Okay, all right. Then I will move on to my report.
Excellent.
Okay, so first of all, I don't know if the rest of the school committee saw, but Mask released a document of the 10 resolutions that the board of directors approved at their 11/7 annual meeting. The ones of direct importance to Maynard are the rejection of MCAS testing for the last year's 10th graders and alternate graduation requirements that are determined by each local committee and school administration. Additionally, they're requesting a moratorium on all high stakes testing for the 2020-21 school year for all students. So this is not happening, but this is something that they are pushing for, and they are going to, speak with the appropriate governing bodies to address. Another one is a directive that all school districts in the Commonwealth guarantee the eradication of racist practices. Diversity, equity, and inclusion should be embedded and practiced for students, families, faculty, and staff. The school committee must ensure anti-racist school culture in its district. So that is on us, and I believe that our administrative team has been working on incorporating some of that into our.
We adopted that resolution already, that resolution 3.
I'm not saying we need to adopt it. It was passed by the resolution committee. It was not accepted by the board of directors yet.
But I think that's the one, so I think that's the one we
Yes.
had already voted on, right?
Yes.
That one, and also the state funding resolution 2 that they included.
Mm-hmm. Or the third one that I think is important is they are going to support the Empower Act, and I think this is fantastic, which would allow municipalities to lower the voting age for local authority elections, because students ages 16 and 17 have the skills and critical thinking abilities to vote in local elections, and they would allow municipalities to open those elections up for, for local. It would only be for town officials and voting. It wouldn't be for state.
Where we're incorporating the civic education. I think it's very timely.
I do too. I think it's great.
Good. Yep.
So I hope that goes through. Their intent to file, petition, and support legislation that would add sexual orientation and gender identity to the list of protected classes in order to provide equity and support to LGBTQ+ students, teachers, and staff. And then the final one is advocacy through petitioning the Board of Secondary and Elementary Education to waive all attendance accountability requirements for the 2020-21 school year. Which, I don't know how soon they would be able to get that done, but it may end up being retroactive, but I think that's a good plan as well. Next topic, select board. I attended the Tuesday meeting, and it was held despite the tragedy. It was a tough meeting. At one point, a couple people, well, most of us, I think, broke down. But anyway, it was, people stuck with it. So the ballot question for the special election there's a special election that is scheduled for December 16th, in case people weren't aware of it. And on that ballot, they are going to be requesting debt exclusion for the cost of the new fire station. The other thing they mentioned was that charter school reimbursement is higher than anticipated this year. And Chief Noble noted that mental health calls are up 105% due to the stress of COVID on members in the community. Which reinforces the need for additional support in schools and continued development of SEL programs, social emotional learning programs. And then on a more positive note, Justine St. John announced the release of the Hometown Heroes video, which was produced by WAVM. It's posted on both the Town and Hometown Heroes Facebook pages, and Mary Branley was a donor and supporter of the project.
Many donors. That was a cool
Yes,
project.
but the other donors aren't on the school committee. So I'm just pointing out my school committee friend.
Thank you.
All right, solar array update. The solar array committee has decided upon the best proposal that they've received for the installation of solar panels, which would benefit the district. However, the caveat is that in order for the project to be worth the investment, the panels would also need to be installed in the field behind Green Meadow, not just on the high school's roof or part of the high school's roof and part of the Fowler parking lot. So the next step is the select board will review and vote on whether or not to accept this proposal. And then we are going to need to accept it. If they accept it, we will need to vote as well. So I have requested a presentation for our December 3rd meeting to have is it the consultant, Brian, the solar consultant or agent or
So there is a consultant. It'll
A
either be
consultant.
her or Justin DeMarco from the town with Tim McDuff from the school to just explain the proposal.
Right, and I've also asked for a comparison between this proposal and the one that Michelle put forth to us last year, because I know that I would like an explanation as to why this one is preferable to the one that Michelle secured, and also why we weren't allowed to pursue Michelle's plan.
Also, I mean, that's a big commitment to that ground. I mean, we don't have a lot of green space, and so behind Green Meadow, I just that to me right there gives me pause that we need to think about that. It's not something I would want to.
Right,
know.
and that's something that we can discuss when and if it comes to us for a vote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like you said, Lydia, last year when Michelle was talking about it, there was no conversation about that Green Meadow piece. It was
No.
It was going to work with just Fowler in the high school.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And then lastly, Ellen Duggan reached out to request that the Maynard schools get involved in celebrating Maynard's sesquicentennial. Because of COVID-19, many of the events planned for this year have been postponed or canceled altogether, which has limited the opportunities for student engagement and learning. As a means of involving our students and encouraging them to learn about the history of their town, Ellen suggested the following activities. Create a time capsule to be buried at the end of the sesquicentennial celebrations. Currently, there's one at Coolidge and another at Fowler, which will be dug up during the course of this year and opened and whatnot. She thought that perhaps we could do something like that. I immediately thought, what happens if we trap COVID in that capsule and then they open it up 50 years from now and everyone gets infected? So I thought, I don't know.
I mean, we could hose it down, you know.
Yeah, we'll have to
we can
sanitize it.
put a can of Lysol in there with it so that, you know, they have some PPE in there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably what the capsule would be, a whole bunch
I
of
don't
PPE.
want it to be like opening King Tut's tomb and then everyone dies, you know, like that would be a bad thing.
Could we do like a school committee capsule somewhere with the kids or something? I don't know. Maybe each of us put something in them with the kids.
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, it's something, it's just, you know, she was tossing out ideas. She also was wondering if we could ask teachers to develop projects for students around researching noteworthy Maynardians and then present their biographical information, or maybe there could be an exhibit at the library or well, actually, we're not going to the library, are we? So somewhere, maybe there could be an exhibit or something. Maybe it's just a video online or posted online, but and then the other thing she thought of was having WAVM, the high school students and the Maynard Library collaborate on finding and or producing short videos with historical content and current content to air on a weekly basis or to post on, you know, the town website or any other, you know, pertinent website. Other ideas are certainly welcome. And if any teachers or students are interested in getting involved, please contact the Sesquicentennial Committee or Ellen Duggan directly. And Jen, if you have any ideas, or you're muted. Can we unmute Jen?
So Chuck Karajanis, Principal Karajanis, is actually on the Sesquicentennial Committee.
Excellent.
So Brian and I, Mr. Haas and I will speak with him about working with the principles of curriculum instruction and assessment to get something done.
All right, great. Thank you. And that's all I have. So now, other business. We are going to have a presentation by Amanda Bailey on how IXL is used in classrooms, I think specifically at Fowler. And Mike, do you want to start us off?
I do. It's my honor to work with this teacher every day. Amanda is in her 5th year at Fowler. She's been with us since 2016. She earned professional status last year. We absolutely love the job that she does working with 7th grade students teaching math as well as accelerated math. And one of the programs that we have been using at Fowler for 2 years now is called IXL. We use it for ELA and math. During the emergency shutdown last spring, we also used it for social studies and science, or possibly just science. I can't quite recall if we also did social studies, but now that we're back to our paid membership, we just use it for ELA and math. The math and ELA teachers have really embraced it. It's an instructional tool. It's not a curriculum program. It is more of what you might consider a supplementary type of program. And it's great for practice as well as teaching new skills or reinforcing skills that were taught in the lesson. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Amanda Bailey, our 7th grade math teacher. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Mike. So hi, I'm Amanda Bailey, 7th grade math teacher, and I hope that you enjoy hearing about IXL. I don't know if you want to share the presentation, Colleen. I think that's how we had worked it out. Okay. While Colleen's getting that shared, I was actually very excited when our school started embracing IXL because I had previously worked in Ludlow teaching 8th grade for 4 years, and we had used IXL there. So I had come with some experience using IXL and was excited to again get to use it as such a powerful tool. So go ahead on to slide 2, please. So like Mr. Barth said, IXL is a tool. It's used when needed in the classrooms, and it has many different functions to help target student needs. So on the screen, you see there's a small screenshot, and I've taken several from my program. In the green bar, there are 3 main areas in IXL: learning, diagnostic, and analytics. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about each section and how it's used both from the teacher and student perspectives. Go ahead on. So the first I want to talk about is the diagnostic, and it's usually the first area that the students encounter when they start the school year. It has diagnostic tests for both ELA and math. It helps assess student skills. On the screen, you see there are 2 screenshots, one of the math sub areas that are assessed and one of the language arts sub areas that are assessed. The main purpose of the assessment is to analyze areas within the subject and to determine where students' understanding lies. So as opposed to having a general area in mathematics, like, oh, this student is at a mid 7th grade level, it specifically tells you where is that student in numbers and operations, where is that student in algebra and algebraic thinking, because those may be 2 very different areas and they may be at 2 very different learning points. Same thing with the ELA areas. It will show you the difference in how that student is doing. The student can log in and take the diagnostic at any time throughout the year. So it's a great place to start to see where students are at the beginning of the year and then to kind of see how they progress as the year goes on. Teachers can then see these areas and help assess, okay, what should we do in class? How should we target that? What students might need some reinforcement and extra help, or what students need to be challenged to move ahead. Next page, please. The learning area is the main area students work in, and it's actually the main area they see on their screen. It can be used in a couple different ways. So skills can be assigned based on the diagnostic results. And the diagnostic test will actually give suggestions of what the program believes the student needs to work on. However, teachers can also go into diagnostic and determine that themselves. So on the screen, you see a screenshot, and you might notice that some of the skills have little stars next to them that are colored in. The yellow stars are skills that I have selected, and students will see those skills pop up in their recommendations area. So they know that I would recommend that they work on those skills if they were to go in to IXL. The recommendations can be either from the diagnostic or something that I just see the student needs to work on a little bit more from working with them in class. Next page, please. So The nice thing about iExcel is it's adaptive. So the better the student does, the more challenging the questions get. So the student knows they're doing well as things get harder. And 80% is proficient. So when I assign skills in class, I tell the students, I'd like you to get to at least an 80%. It means that they understand the skill, they're good at it, they know what they're doing. Above 80% is considered excelling. And that's when the questions really do get very challenging and push the kids. And I always encourage them to go beyond and to try that to get to 100%. However, if a student does get a question wrong while they're working, the nice thing is iExcel explains how to do it correctly. Now, I only took a very small screenshot. In reality, this explanation would continue, and it shows the student what they answered, what the correct answer was, and why. So the student can go through and see what they did, and it can kind of guide them, which is a really nice tool in this remote learning. If they're at home working on something, it's just one other resource that can help them if I'm not there to help them myself. My next page, please. So once the students have gone in and worked either on Diagnostic or in the learning area, I can go into the Analytics tab, and I've taken a couple little screenshots on here so you can see all the different options that I see as a teacher in the analytics area. So we can see a lot of things. We can see specifically what skills the students worked on. So I know all of the kindergarten skills my 7th graders have gone in and worked on for fun. I can see how long they spent working. So if I can see if a student spent 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I can see how long they spent on each individual question if I really want to get into that. I can see the exact questions they worked on. I can see the exact answers they typed in and whether that answer was correct or not. And I can also see a breakdown of what types of skills were challenging to students. So if students were working on a rates problem, I can see whether the predictive questions were giving them trouble, or if the more computive questions were giving them trouble. What do we use this information to do? We can use it to tailor instruction in class. So if I notice that a lot of students in class are struggling on a skill, I know I have to go back and work on it and kind of help the kids on that. Or maybe it's just the wording. Sometimes I notice that the questions iExcel is using might be different than how I word it in class. And that's actually really important because a student might know how to do it, but the vocab was giving them some trouble. It would help create meaningful assessments. So again, showing me like how I can word things differently or how I can challenge students differently, and to help target reteaching strategies. So if I know that there's only like 5 kids out of my entire class that were struggling on that, I might develop some sort of way to help them and reteach them. So I talked a little bit about this. How is it used at Fowler? The diagnostic definitely helps us assess prior knowledge at the beginning of the school year. We can get some benchmarks quickly on where students are at. It will help us assess their growth over time. Again, they can take that diagnostic throughout the year at the end of the year. I like to use it to reinforce practice on lessons in class. And this is where it's used as needed, because it's a great tool to have students go in, like we were doing rates and proportions today. I gave some students some skills to work on, and I can go in right away and I can see how they did, and it gives me immediate feedback. I can actually see live feedback, so I know exactly who's working on it, how many questions they've answered in real time, and then I know that they're actually in there or if they're not in there, and it will show me if their screen has gone stagnant, if they started wandering off to another tab. And it's also really great. I was out sick the other day, and I was able to give the students meaningful work. They were able to go in and work on something that we had been learning about in class, and they could continue to stay on topic and progress where we were at. It's also great for differentiating instruction. So students have access to all grade levels. So even though I teach 7th graders, I could assign 6th grade skills if I noticed that a student was missing some prior knowledge. I could also assign 8th grade skills if I noticed a student really just needed that extra push and that extra challenge. And then when that student gets to 8th grade, they can still restart a skill, or they could move on to algebra. And the honor students in 8th grade do learn algebra, so they would have access to that high school level math. I believe iExcel goes all the way up to calculus. And again, it's a good tool to use as an intervention if I notice that a student needs a little bit more support. So it's used in a variety of different ways as a tool when we need it. And that is the last slide. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has, or I went too fast.
So
Tasha?
oh, sorry.
I had a question about, I like the information that's shared about the dashboard and the analytics. I think that's really great. And by the way, congratulations on your master's
Thank you.
as well. I know that, thank you. I wanted to know if there's a way parents are able to also get access to some of that information independently of their child. And just thinking if they want to understand what skills they might need, like if they need tutoring or things they might want to explore on their own, or if it's, you know, ELA vocabulary, what kind of reading materials maybe they want to consider to support the efforts that are happening in the school. I'm curious how that might be possible, or if it is possible and we don't know about it.
I'm not aware if IXL has a parent login, kind of like Google Classroom has that like add guardians feature. I know parents that can have access, like you said, through their student's account. That's something that I would have to look into a little more because it's not a feature I'm aware of off the top of my head. Mr. Barth, you're muted. I don't know if you were trying to add in.
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself and then Colleen has to unmute me, so I shouldn't do that. Yeah, I don't believe that IXL has a parent login. They do have a parent letter that can go home and kind of explain what IXL is all about. My son uses IXL at AMSA, and one of the things I do as a parent is I use his login. I go in and I'm working next to him anyway, seeing the things he's working on. But in a normal year, if he were just going to school every day, I could still log in and see the things that he's working on. I would just use his login to do that.
Is this something that, I know you're presenting it for Fowler, is this something at the lower grade at elementary that is being used or able to be used, or can, I see Jennifer shaking her head no. Oh, I don't know.
Able to
We
be
used it during the, oh, sorry.
Oh, it is able to be used, and we did pilot it last year when they opened it up for free for the elementary school. When we spoke with the teachers, however, for this year at the Green Meadow School specifically, there were other programs that they felt gave better data and better practice for that age student. So we are using it for Fowler School, and then we are also using it I believe for either grades 9 and 10 students, or for intervention at the high school. I can't remember which. We have so many different programs we've had. I'm blanking on which of those we're using IXL for at the high school.
It's 9 and 10 plus it's some sort of remedial intervention for 11th and 12th graders who need some gap closing skills.
Well, that's what I was thinking at the elementary school, because I know that a lot of we talk about like interventions and stuff and how we can focus on some of those reading and mathematic skills that might be helpful. So that's why I just came about, because I know that's been a conversation piece that we having parallel a little bit. But there are other products that are better able to bridge those things, that's obviously
right.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, IXL isn't cheap. So we have to be very thoughtful about which grades are going to really embrace it in Maynard.
So,
Thank you.
Mary?
yeah, so Mike, when you say that, so do we pay for it according to how many grades are using it, or how does that work?
Yeah, we pay per hundreds
Student,
of
I see Jennifer say
students that we have, I
student in
believe.
her words.
Yeah, it's a per student fee.
Per student, yeah. Seats.
Okay.
We pay for seats.
Okay, and the math is phenomenal. Does it is it also being utilized, the language arts? It is.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, and the math is so cut and dry that it seems like it would be the perfect model. Does it work as well for the English language arts?
I know Ms. Sullivan on my 7th grade team uses it rather frequently, and it's new to her as of the spring. And I know she's gotten into it and she uses it very similarly to how I use it.
All right, excellent. Excellent, very
Yeah,
good.
but you're right, Mary. It's the problems are a little quicker in math because it's just you get one problem, then you move to the next problem. Whereas in ELA, you might have to read a short passage, and then you might have to identify, the main ideas or the characters or things like that. But it takes a student longer because they've had to read like a passage. So yeah, but we use it 4th through 8th grade in ELA and in math. And like I said, at the high school as well.
Bethlyn?
So I guess I'm wondering, first of all, thank you, Amanda. I can tell you have these like excellent speaker presentation skills as well. Like you just went through that so smoothly.
That's how her back to school night presentation. It's awesome. It was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. So I guess the one question I had, even when you were starting, was just what had you, I guess, Mike, it may have occurred to you, or had you consider coming and presenting this to us in particular tonight? I just would love to just understand what you were thinking in that regard.
Brian asked for the principals to think of things they could showcase at school committee meetings, and the first thing I thought of was IXL. And if Chuck comes to the next one and then Rob comes to the next one, then I'm back again. I'll find something else. It was just the first thing that came to my mind because I've just been so impressed with our teachers embracing it and the way that we really are able to measure growth. The other thing that I think is so important right now is that I think we all understand the gaps that our kids came into this year with, and we're still concerned about those gaps. And in many cases, maybe those gaps aren't even closing because of the nature of our model this year. And so I think IXL is a great tool to just really monitor that and not allow kids to fall through the cracks. So especially now, I think is a good time to shine a light on this kind of tool that we're using, where we do have a lot of students that have missed time on learning, or the same kind of time on learning that they were used to.
Can I ask a question about that? For the, because as you're saying, like building those gaps and differentiating instruction, does it always show, like when you put that slide up, it showed grade 3. If you're sharing with a 4th grader or something that's third grade material, do they see that they're in that 3rd grade? Okay.
No.
Oh, good.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Just
Right. They don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
That could be a self-esteem issue. All right.
Exactly. Yeah. Or a boost if you're differentiating up, but
Right,
still,
yeah.
it could. Yes.
They see something like L.1 or something, but it's not their grade.
Okay. I just saw like the boxes on the slide. I didn't know if that's how the student saw it as well.
Yeah, everything on the slide was the teacher view because that was in my login.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Natasha?
Mike mentioned something and it kind of got me thinking about how you're measuring or monitoring how the kids, either regression or how they're filling in the gaps. Is there not value potentially in having one product for the element, like to go up, you can see how a student might progress through the years, the historical progression if they are in the elementary, or is that something that is done differently in a different product, so it really wouldn't measure the same? I'm thinking like if a kid, it goes from one building to another, how easy, because if they're using a certain tool at Fowler and the staff are used to those certain measures and analytics, but they're not seeing that same product, or how that child might be transferring in from the elementary school to understand where they need to pick up or how they are progressing. I'm just wondering how that gap, that bridge in building to building, if they're using different products, happens.
We use a variety of assessment mechanisms in order to evaluate student progress, and what we found is no one assessment, and IXL really isn't an assessment in that way. It's more of the intervention work and that type of thing. That's how it's being utilized and what it's for. But so we use a variety of assessment mechanisms to be able to determine where student skills are. We are working every year. There's transition meetings between the different grades to talk about student progress and how students are moving forward. Good night, buddy. And so those kinds of conversations about skills and standards are brought up there at those meetings about specific students in that way. And so it's not one thing, it's a portfolio of things that we want to look at to make sure that we really understand each child in a nuanced way, because each product does things a little bit differently and is
Right.
good at identifying certain things and maybe misses some other things and those types of things. So.
And plus, Natasha, our STAR benchmark does, we do see that data, the growth data from students coming from the Green Meadow School.
Thank you.
And I will say too, just from the parents' perspective, I heard from a lot of elementary age teachers that IXL was not a successful tool with the younger guys. And then on the flip side, now having one a little bit older, from just talking to one grade level, that it tends to be something that kids enjoy using and is successful. So I think it's that, age differentiator too, in terms of product, not just tracking.
Yeah, I was just thinking more like if the staff are using different products, like how that carry, looking
Like
at
how you
having that
go
historical.
from symphony math to whatever the 4th and 5th graders then do, or they do.
Right. Like, I guess I was trying to understand, like, if I'm in, a 4th grade teacher or staff at Fowler, if I'm used to using IXL, how am I getting that, better understanding of some of those skills that they were already, captured in a different tool that I'm not using there. But it sounds like there are the assessments that you're talking about, the STAR, that are able to bridge that in that portfolio Jennifer referenced.
Yeah, the other thing, and please don't misunderstand, we don't necessarily have sort of if you understand sort of portfolio development K to 12, we don't have that sort of defined system for each student in that way. But the other thing to remember is that all of these products are doing is measuring a student's ability or skill set against common standards. So even if I'm using a Lexia product in elementary school, which was the one, was the literacy product that the teachers much preferred over IXL. And then in 4th grade, I'm going to IXL because that's where it makes sense to do that. When we talk about the skills, we're not talking about, Lexia report 4-3-2 says this. It's, these are the standards and these are the skills that students have mastered or need help with in that type of way.
Thank you.
Yeah, these products seem to be like a boost to fill gaps versus core content. Like, it's not like a foundations where it makes sense to carry through from K through 3rd, right? These are more just like a fill-in where, oh, this concept or this piece might be missing and you need a little more work and, multiplication or whatever that might be.
It's
versus
a supplemental tool. It's not meant to take the replacement of actual instruction.
Right.
Yeah, I like the differentiated learning potential there as well, because I know that that's feedback we've heard in the community that's been a challenge sometimes. So anything that supports the staff and able to provide some of that a little bit better is always great.
All right.
Yeah, I also like the fact that it helps to push the kids maybe even further than their grade level. So it does both. It, helps the kids get caught up, but also helps those kids that are bored because they know the material and they'd like to be pushed further. So thank you for that.
And it's nice, to be able to have that nod for them if they need it, because it's hard to get that sometimes in just the way the regular classroom needs to work.
All right. Are we good?
Yes, thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Barth.
For being on so late. We really appreciate it. And it was a phenomenal presentation. So thank you. And thank you, Mr. Barth, to you as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay. And now we come to our favorite point in the evening.
Where we're going to lose everybody.
Yeah, I know, right? Everyone falls asleep at policy. All right, so first up we have EC, Buildings and Grounds Management. This is new. So technically, we adopted it on the 30th of January this year.
So we're amending it, right?
Nope.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are. We adopted it January 30th.
We only made one change.
Oh, right, yes, yes, yes. We only made one change, and it's where we say,
Said, it originally said they will work with other municipal departments as necessary, but we added, they will work with building manager and other municipal departments. This is the second paragraph, sorry.
Right.
The only change.
Added reference to the new building manager.
right,
position.
right, yeah. We had, yes, correct.
I'll make a motion that we accept or approve the amended policy EC Buildings and Grounds Management, which was originally approved January 30th, 2020, as is recommended.
I'll second.
All right, roll call vote. Mary Branley.
Or discussion. I don't know.
Oh, sorry, discussion. Let's discuss this.
I don't know if anyone has any, but it's, in case they did.
Just to say, it's called EC Buildings and Grounds. There's another one that's Building and Grounds Management, EC-1. So just
Oh, wait, maybe I'm looking at, hold
No,
on.
you're right. We're gonna get rid of the other one. Yeah, no, don't go there yet.
Yeah,
so we want to vote. So Natasha said EC Buildings and Grounds Management. So I just wanted to make sure.
Well,
that
because when
we-
I'm looking at the policy, it says EC Buildings and Grounds
Right, yeah,
Management.
yeah.
But so there's, okay, so that's the one I am motioning to amend, not -1.
right.
Correct. Correct. And there is one little edit. It said, in the write-up, it said buildings manager. So building, just get rid of that S. It's not even worth conversation.
Really?
No,
Building manager?
it
But
said-
he's the manager of more than one building.
Yeah.
Oh, buildings manager? Is that what we call him? Okay. Guess I would have called him a bit.
Well, he's actually the director of building operations, but
Is he?
yes, I think that's the title officially, although it evolved well before for reasons I'm not clear on either. If we want to keep evolving titles, we certainly get different documents, but
Whatever.
with
Okay,
the
so
official title. Yeah.
where are we? So should we insert the official title?
Probably.
All right.
is it, so, Brian, can you, is it director of building?
Director of Building
Operations?
Operations.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion that we approve the amended policy EC Buildings and Grounds Management.
Nope, nope, the management shouldn't be there. I don't know why it is.
Okay, all right. You know what? I'm gonna
You
redo
made
a
the
whole new
Start
motion.
again. Okay, so rescind your motion.
I'm going to
Start
rescind my motion since
Okay.
apparently we have a couple more edits. I will make a motion that we approve the amended policy EC Buildings and Grounds with the edit to the title Director of Building Operations, which was originally approved January 30th, 2020. Did I?
Yeah, that's
I
perfect.
think so. Do we have a
Okay.
second?
I'll second.
Now do we have a discussion again?
Glad we had that first discussion, right?
Yes, we did. Just in case I messed up somewhere else on this.
That's okay. You're good. Good job, Lydia, though. You guys did a great job. Thank you.
All righty. Okay, roll call vote. Bethlen Julian,
Yes.
Natasha Rivera,
Yes.
Jessica Clark,
Yes.
Mary Branley,
Yes.
and Lydia Clancy. Yes, okay. Next one is EC-1 Buildings and Ground Management. We adopted this in January, but it's unnecessary because it speaks to regional districts only. So I am asking for a motion to remove this from our adopted policies.
I make a motion that we remove EC1 Buildings and Grounds Management from the adopted policies of the Maynard
Do I have a second?
School District.
My second.
All right, discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Natasha Rivera,
Yes.
Bethlen Houlihan,
Yes.
Jessica Clark,
Yes.
Mary Branley,
Yes.
Lydia Clancy. Yes, all right, good. You're out. And the next one is ECA buildings and ground security, I'm looking for a motion to reject this because it doesn't really reflect Maynard's situation. And we have another policy, which is number 211, building security, and we will be reviewing that and amending that and bringing that forward. And that we will probably recodify as ECA buildings and ground security.
Oh, wait, hold on. So that's ECA. I wasn't even thinking that's what you were looking to do. Okay.
Okey-doke. Not,
So you
sorry, not ECA. It would be ECA-1. So there's ECA protections of buildings and grounds, and that's 741 recodified as ECA, but the one we're doing now is the mask ECA that,
right, that's ECA buildings. There's ECA buildings and ground security. That's in the folder draft. And then there's another one, ECA, and it has in parentheses number 741.
741. So, because we're keeping 741 and recodifying it as ECA.
Okay. So we are amending ECA is what you're saying.
So right now we have two ECAs. We've got the one with buildings and ground security, and then we've got the one protection of buildings and grounds, which was before 741. So we're getting rid of the buildings and ground security, right?
So we had this policy and then.
Which is this? I don't know what this.
So we had 741, which is the Maynard policy, 741 protection of buildings and grounds. And then this was buildings and grounds security. So rather, this one doesn't fit, but we want to keep 741. So we're recodifying this. We amended it and we're recodifying 741 as ECA. But we also need to remove ECA, which was part of the bulk approval in January.
I think what we approved, there were ones that we didn't already have something similar for. So if we would not have adopted this.
All right, so it's done. No, we don't need to.
I mean, that's how I understood it, right? If we had something similar, so we would probably just be looking to amend ECA, right?
That's fine. I'm trying to cover all the bases.
I don't know if I'm could be understanding wrong, but I just want to make sure. So we had one, and now we're looking, which was 741, and we were just now amending it, right?
Yes.
But we're not, we're amending it by renaming it is basically the only thing that we're doing.
Well, no, we changed some of the thing, like number 1, we added superintendent's office and or their designee.
Right.
And then we also took number 2 out entirely, which was school property is officially closed to use 1/2 hour after sunset, blah, 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 blah. We took that out.
So they both were, so the mask policy was building and ground security, and the policy 741, what was that titled before?
Protection of buildings and grounds.
Okay, so it's just the same thing, security of, okay. So yeah, I would say that they were similar. We're just amending what we had, probably. I mean, that's.
Okay.
I think that's a fair interpretation, so that we could just take 741, rename as amended.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to recodify 741 as ECA and accept it as amended.
Okay, so I will make a motion that we approve the amended policy ECA protection of buildings and grounds, formerly Maynard policy, school committee policy number 741.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay.
Thanks.
Never.
Mary Branley,
Yes.
Jessica Clark,
Yes.
Bethlyn Houlihan,
Yes.
Natasha Rivera.
Yes.
Alrighty. First reading, AC discrimination.
Non-discrimination.
Yeah, that is what I meant, actually.
I'm sorry, this has been a long day.
It has been a
And that's
really
like the
long
worst thing to laugh at too,
Yeah.
because it's,
Right.
Okay, so AC non-discrimination, it replaces Maynard School, well, it's more than just 14, but it
Mhm.
incorporates 14 and goes the extra mile. And it is the first policy in the AC category. We already approved ACAB, which was harassment. And this is the sort of parent policy to that. So what we did do is we stole 2 paragraphs from 14 and added it to the mask policy. The first one is
The first paragraph.
the first paragraph, right? The Maynard School Committee ensures equal employment and educational opportunities regardless of race, color, age, religion, national origin, sex, gender identity, marital status, veteran status, disability, or sexual orientation in accordance with the legal references cited. And then at the end, we inserted any employee or member of the school community found to have engaged in discrimination shall be subject to sanctions, including but not limited to warning, suspension, expulsion, or termination, subject to applicable procedural requirements established by law or by any collective bargaining agreements.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
About that. For one, so has legal has looked at this or no?
First reading.
Okay, so they haven't. Okay. And I'm guessing, are we waiting for feedback, or we have not from
Feedback from whom?
from the unions?
No. This wasn't anything that I mean, this is a discrimination policy. This is pretty standard for, and I mean, it just basically supports all of, the Civil Rights Act, Title VII, Executive Order, blah, 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 Equal Pay Act, Title IX, Rehabilitation Act. It's just, it just discusses things that are law.
Yeah, I know. I read that part. I'm just thinking because it also gets into this discipline. I think it's just worth, whether they want to share feedback or not, I think it's worth sharing that this is being reviewed.
But those are subject to applicable procedural requirements established by law or by any collective bargaining agreements, right? So
Yeah, I mean, what kind of feedback can they provide? It's not something we're determining. It's something that's determined by law.
So it says any employee
Yeah.
who may have been found engaged in discrimination shall be subject to, not including, so it has outlines a disciplinary process if a staff member is, which
Right.
I'm not objecting that should happen. I'm just saying because it has disciplinary implications, I think it is not unreasonable that just to say, hey, FYI, this is, being reviewed.
Except for this was already in the standing policy in the district. So
right.
It's not like it's anything new.
That's fine. If you don't feel it's necessary, all I was doing was asking if you were going to share it or if it had been shared. So it sounds like the answer is no, and that's fine.
Okay. All right. Any other feedback?
can I just ask, do you know what number 5?
Yeah.
I like the way it's worded. I'm just trying to understand. Consider carefully in all decisions made within the school district the potential benefits or adverse consequences that those decisions might have on the human relations aspects of all segments of society. Do you know what what that means?
Well, I can take a guess, but no, I do not know specifically. And I can, ask someone at Mask. But for instance, the Nature's Classroom, this is just a broad thing, nature's classroom, right? Everyone loves it. It's great. There are certain kids, very few, but there are kids who are physically unable to attend nature's classroom, right? So in deciding to promote and proceed with that program, we need to be conscientious of the fact that there are students that are going to be left behind and are not going to be included. And that impacts, you know, human relations and within the school context. That's how I read it. But again, I can, you know, certainly.
Yeah, I feel like that's an important point. So I almost feel like it would just be nice to know what Mask thinks in that so that we can have it in mind as we adopt the policy, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Well,
I'm not
how do you
saying
know
we-
if you're not clear on it, how do you know it's
Yeah,
being
I
followed or
still
not?
feel like, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you.
No.
I still feel like we should adopt it. I would just love to hear more because I feel like that's important and could be important, particularly right now, to be intentional about. But that's it. I think besides that, I have no comments on it. I think it's very well worded. It's better than I could have done if I were trying to put it together, something together.
Okay, no more, any other comments? No. Okay. Because it's first reading, we do not need to vote on this tonight. We can bring this back on the 3rd, unless,
I have no objections with it.
I would like just to have legal weigh in on it before I would want to vote on it. So that's what I would, you know, if they have, that's why I asked earlier if they had, and you said it was a first reading. So I guess that meant that they had not yet.
okay, so I'm just asking because the body of it is masks policy, and we took the first paragraph and the last paragraph from our existing policy and added it to it. How, I don't understand why there would be any changes legally.
So the policy that we added into it was last reviewed 2012, correct? We added language, so legal may have, as we've found in some of our other policies, there might be legal language that since 2012 might be not favorable. If we would have just had the mask policy, that would be different, but we've included old language.
Okay. All
So
right.
if she's still fine with the older language that was last viewed in 2012 to be included, then that next time we can vote on it.
All right. Does anyone else? Okay. All righty. Next, we have IBG homeschooling. This replaces school committee policy 661 if we choose to adopt it.
Can you speak to a little bit any edits and what was changed?
Jennifer Gaudette reviewed this one also.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Jen reviewed it. We didn't do any edits to it.
So this is straight from mask?
Yeah.
We didn't take anything from the older policy and put it in?
Nope.
So this would just be amending.
I'd be recodifying. Because we haven't amended anything. It's just we are adopting this and sorry, not recodifying, just adopting it. We're not amending.
Well, you said we have a homeschooling policy, right?
Right, we're replacing the homeschooling policy with this.
Yeah, it looks good to me. Do you know if there's a reason why it's bolded on the bottom? Is that for a particular reason?
I think because
It's all right. If you don't.
they do that in certain places, and I don't know. I can ask.
It might be just to call attention to it, which is
I
absolutely
think
fine.
that's all it is. I mean, I think that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not in all of the mask policies that but I've seen some recently in a couple of the other ones. Is there any, I guess I would just want to know if Jeff, from a special education perspective, had anything. I don't know if he's looked at it or had an opportunity to look at it, but
I think so. But it's after 9, so he doesn't comment after 9. So if we want to comment from him, we're going to have to wait until we meet on Tuesday and then get it during the subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
see anything that was troubling for me, but I can look at it again.
Can I ask one question? Since we're adopting it from mask, it makes mention of a procedural form the district will provide.
Mhm.
Do we have that form?
Well, we have the old form. So, and that is, the form is an administrative thing that we don't do that. That would be Brian and Jen Gaudette's purview.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we had one since it is
Yep.
referenced from somebody else holding us responsible for having something.
Right.
Can you just speak to a little bit what's changed in our current policy to this one? That was, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
My recollection is that this is just sort of better spells out the requirements and responsibilities of all parties and rights of all parties. The wording seemed much cleaner than sort of what we had. So I think, and I don't have any notes in front of me, and I apologize about that. I'm happy to go back and look. But
No, we put you on the spot. It's fine. I think, the old policy, and I included it in,
Yeah.
but like the old policy includes a home visit, and it's more, we insert ourselves more into the program and the home than we actually need to. So I think this, like Jen said, it's just cleaner, and it's sort of relinquishes some of the responsibility that we originally had taken on that we didn't necessarily need to.
Yeah, I think if Jeff, it looks like it's a little bit less robust in comparison. The other policy looked a little bit more
granular.
Yeah, like it just spoke to about like participation in schools and whatnot a little bit more, and like for extracurricular and that kind of.
It does on the second page, the bolded.
Oh wait, maybe hold on.
They'll have access to public school activities of either a curricular or extracurricular nature upon approval of the superintendent and other as space allows.
Oh, it wasn't one of the, okay, I was looking at the numbers, sorry.
Okay, no worries.
In the like use of facilities, that was the other part too, that looked a little different, like library use and whatnot. Is that, I don't know how that would work.
Generally speaking, what happens with the homeschooling plan and the regulations spell out, the administrative regulations spell out much more clearly sort of requests of this nature. Generally what happens in terms of facility use or participation in programs is if somebody would like to participate in an extracurricular activity, or if there is a unique class that we offer that they are not able to, their homeschool teacher or parent is not able to engage with them at home, that they may come in and take that class specifically. Those are all handled on case-by-case basis because they that's how they come up. They don't come up very often. Generally speaking, this year is very much an exception, but generally speaking, our families who are choosing to homeschool have a very specific plan for how they would like the education to go, which likely doesn't involve most of the work that we do, because they have very specific ideals about that they would like to uphold. But that's how.
Would we not want to include any language, I guess, that they would be able to have access to a library, or is that something that?
So I think the sentence that Mary read covers that, that they have access to curricular programming, things of that nature. I would consider the library a curricular program or a curricular resource.
Either a curricular or extracurricular. Okay, got it. So it's more about it. So that's inclusive of facility on.
So do we want to then with this one just have Jeff do a review
Yep.
and then we'll
And
be able to.
I'll bring it back on the 12th. I mean, on the 3rd of December.
Because the homeschooling kids do have access to special ed services in the building. So maybe there's a blurb that needs to go in there as well. They still have the opportunity to access.
Well, there's also a subsection that we haven't reviewed and edited yet that we haven't brought to you. And there's homeschooling administrative procedure, instructions for submitting a proposal for homeschooling, and extracurricular and athletic participation by homeschooled students. So these are all yet to be reviewed and discussed and presented.
Right.
And we may decide not to include them. I mean, Brian and Jen may just want to do their own.
Next.
Okay, we good?
Yep.
All right. IKE, promotion and retention of students. This replaces number 516, which will be changed to IKEP because it is procedural and not really policy.
Was this was not one that was previously adopted in January?
Well, no, because we currently have one.
So this is an amended one.
No, this is mask. So it's replacing 516. So the mask promotion and retention of student policy is replacing our existing promotion and retention of student policy, because the one we currently have, 516, is procedure, not really policy. So we're keeping 516, but we're recodifying it as a procedure. And then the mask policy would be the policy that we adopt.
Okay, so then we're not replacing that, we're just changing that one to an administrative policy?
To a procedural, yes.
Or procedural, sorry. What was that, 516? All right, so. So do we need to amend that one first? The one that's currently in place? Because we don't want to replace it, because then that means that that one's not existing anymore.
We can do it simultaneously.
That makes sense.
We could make a motion to recodify current Maynard Public School Committee Policy 516 as IKE-P, and then adopt to replace 516 IKE, promotion and retention of students.
I'll make that motion.
sounds- Yeah.
All right, so Bethlyn's gonna make the motion I just said.
Uh-huh.
Do you need to
What
say
she
it again,
said.
Colleen? All right, and someone seconded it?
I will.
And then we're going to discuss it.
Nice. You remember that part.
Yeah. And we're good. Okay. Mary, what?
I said we're gonna vote.
Okay, Mary.
Yes.
Brickley.
Yes.
Are these, hold on, this was a first reading?
Uh-huh. You don't want to.
No, that's fine. I just wasn't thinking we were voting.
Oh, okay.
We've had other ones that we voted on the first time, if they're pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a hesitation, what's your hesitation?
No, I just wasn't planning on voting on it because it was not indicated, but we can vote on it.
Okay. Bethlyn Houlihan,
Yes.
Jessica Clark,
Yes.
Natasha Rivera,
I will abstain.
Lydia Clancy, yes. Okay, so. Our last one is another first reading. It is JH, student absences and excuses. It replaces 520, and 520 was basically, where is 520? 520 was a paragraph. We took that paragraph and we inserted it where you see the highlight in here, word for word. So the mask policy is word for word, and then we took 520 and inserted it, added it to, so we haven't altered any of the words except paragraph under student absence notification. Originally, it said they would notify parent or guardian within 3 days of the student's absence, which is redonkulous. So we changed that to on the day of the student's absence.
Which is kind of what happens anyway, right? Don't parents get, or they were getting
They get an
before,
automatic phone call, yeah.
right, that 10:30 phone call that normally went out?
But this puts it in writing, yeah.
And this is something that, from what I've read about it, it's something that we would be retaining, like it's not a COVID type of policy, right?
No, it's not, but it is something that in the EBC supplemental that makes a note that the superintendent may temporarily amend or suspend a part of this if necessary.
It's not on this one though.
No, because no, it's cited on EBC supplemental, which we have not adopted yet. We're adopting all the others that are cited by EBC supplemental. And then once we have dealt with all of those that are listed, we will then discuss EBC supplemental and what we want to use that for and which policies we want it to address.
All right, and that highlighted part is from that other old policy, right?
Word for word.
Is there, I know before COVID, there were some concerns about student absenteeism and how that was being measured and whatnot. And is any of that, I don't know if any of that came up in the conversations within the subcommittee, some of those parent concerns that had been previously brought up about.
That was more of, I mean, that issue was more of an operational thing and not necessarily a policy. I mean, it was how the absences were being handled that people had an issue with, and not necessarily the policy about absences. So that would be a conversation that we would have with Brian, or we would encourage parents to, you know.
I guess what I'm looking at when in that second, was it second section, student absentee notification program?
Yep.
There's mention about each principal shall make reasonable effort to meet with the students and the parents and, you know, all that part. And I remember there was some consideration about checking with, maybe coordinating with the special education, you know, because there were possibly extenuating circumstances that led to absenteeism. Because I know that sometimes the resource officer had been invoked.
Yep.
Instances. And so I just want to make sure that I don't know, that part has been, because this doesn't really reflect any of those concerns in a way.
Okay, so we can have Jeff look at it on Tuesday and
Okay.
then bring it back on December 3rd.
Yeah, that would, and because it doesn't talk about the student, like the school resource officer, I would say in the context of however we approve it, that if we want to engage in that consideration, because I know there were some folks who felt that that was important in some cases, does that want to be reflected in any way? Like under what circumstances that may be
Under what circumstances
that may the school resource officer would be considered.
Okay, all right.
Aren't they listed in this policy already? When it talks about the parties may seek input from other relevant school staff and or official safe health and human service, housing and nonprofit agencies?
Well, is that I guess I don't consider them school staff, but
well, that's why it says other officials from relevant public
input, the public safety.
I mean, if we're talking about the SR, that's where they would fall.
The parties.
Yeah, they would fall in there.
Would, yeah.
Okay, well, I guess so the parties is, I was thinking more like the principal is what, but you're saying that would be at the
Public safety, the public safety word.
We can take it back and review, not a problem.
Okay. And that's that.
Work. Lot.
All righty. So now we are members' comments, and I am changing the order around. So we have Bethlyn first.
Hi. Yeah, I guess the only thing I'd say is I am very interested to read the study that was cited tonight, because by all accounts I've seen schools are not transmitters. New York Times has been putting out, they've been doing a lot of investigative journaling around this, and I know in school districts near us where they've been actually testing teachers weekly, they're not seeing transmission. It's just not coming through in the schools. When you're keeping all those protocols in place that have been asked for us to do, which would keep us in our hybrid model for now. Obviously, that's while cases have been lower and circumstances could change, but that's been very encouraging for me to see, because of the fact that everyone's trying to balance so much for everyone's sake in the long haul for right now. So I wanted to mention that because of the fact that we are constantly trying to consider it, and I'm watching it very closely and work with our American Academy of Pediatric. We have national partners that we work with that are kind of some of the leading experts. So I just feel like I've been seeing a lot of information around and evidence around that. And I just wanted to mention it, that I think right now it's been encouraging to see that we're able to do what we're doing. And I appreciate all the work that continues to go into that. The other thing, do I have another thing? I don't think so. I think I'm just gonna.
We have communications next week.
Yeah, thank you. We have communications next week. We did, in the meantime, there was just a few of us that had a conversation and we're able to just kind of talk through further the, how to streamline points of contact and ensure that there's just really behind that there's integrity and responsiveness, and that we're sure that we're getting people, then helping them navigate through the system. So we're going to be looking at that. We just kind of took, Mauro had been trying to put something together, but it was very detailed. And I think if someone's trying to figure out where they need to go, it's actually could be more helpful for them to know, like, okay, here's a few places I choose from, and then they're going to help me figure out exactly where I need to go next. And if we know that that's in place and that's going to be happening, then, and that we have the right people that are kind of owning that role, then that will really help to ensure that people are moving to where they need to be going and navigating with whatever they may be presenting with their inquiry. That's not necessarily a concern, which is also an important thing to make sure we're aware of. So yes, we'll have that next week.
Awesome. Jessica?
There. So I personally attended a great online Zoom special education during COVID-19. It was guidance for Massachusetts educators and families, which was, that was on Tuesday night, I think I attended that. It was sponsored by IDA, so I can send some bulleted points along in regards to that. There was some great info and slides that can be super helpful to both educators and families. And then I also would just like to mention, I really appreciated the thought or initial discussions around getting some PDs in place or conversations around the Nice White Parents podcast. I've now listened to it twice. It's phenomenal. And I appreciate that we're going to somehow pull that into the teaching teacher PDs or community conversations, because it is a fabulous listen. If anybody hasn't listened yet, I highly recommend that. And then as far as subcommittees, we met for negotiations and just I don't think anything to mention specifically from that. Besides,
No, it's executive session.
yeah, exactly. So, but we did meet and we are on top of those things.
We did meet.
And Mary?
Jeff and I were both started very early this morning at a 7 o'clock wellness committee meeting. Yes, so, and we're both still awake. So that continues to be going well with with our goals, with the social emotional goal, physical activity, school safety. There's going to be a walking bus. We tried to do this last February and it didn't, I think it was the weather that didn't cooperate, but there's going to be a walking bus on safe routes to schools. It's supposed to be February 3rd, but that happens to be a Wednesday. So it's either going to be the day before or the day afterwards, which is pretty cool. There has been the nutrition practices goal brought up the fact that this year, just for our due diligence, Fresh Picks is up, their contract is up. Actually, I guess it was extended for a year. So we need to take a look at that and just put it out for bid. And, you know, there was conversation about how nutritional the food is that's going home. Everybody appreciates it, but that definitely has come up. So the Fresh Picks, that contract, again, will be having to take a look and go out. And I'm thinking that's Wayne. That would be Wayne Bryan. That's gonna do that. Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll be, I'm assuming, you know, getting some feedback on that. And so that's that. And then budget, I'll let Natasha talk about policy. We just keep meeting every Tuesday.
Yes, you do.
Oh, that's good. And I had just one question. It had to do with the resolutions that you talked about, Lydia.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering, does it make sense for us as a school department to send a letter to the Department of Education, also reinforcing the MCAS piece? Just,
Yep.
like,
Do you want to type that up and then we can all sign it?
want me to do that? You want me to work on something?
Do you mind doing that?
I can just take bits and pieces of what was in the resolution and just do that. So
that resolution, though, I know a lot of school committees have approved that resolution by itself. And I know MASC is actually collecting committees who have done so already. So, I mean, we could, at whatever point, just like we did with the racism resolution, we could adopt that resolution, how it's worded, and just a few tweaks to it.
Yep, I can do that. We can send it in to them because we've done that before. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it needs to get to them because it doesn't do any good to just have a resolution. We need
Right.
to
Yeah.
to them. So I can work that.
And Mary, there is some, I'll look on the MASC listserv because that's where I had seen a lot of school committees responding that they had done it or whatever. I'll see if there's like a letter that you might be able to use as as a template.
So that's perfect. So yeah, so I'll take that up. And that's
Okay.
it.
Excellent. Thank you. Natasha.
So the CPAC wasn't able to meet for the collaboration meeting with the district. It was supposed to be this Tuesday. So that is going to be rescheduled at some point, and I imagine after the holiday. We did, it is worth just mentioning that Heather Nickel from the CPAC board was needed to step down. So, so that group has shrunk a little bit. And CPAC is putting together a parent survey that will be seeking feedback from parents, their fall experience in their learning. Budget subcommittee. So the town, we may be meeting on Monday, or is it Monday? Yeah, and I think based on the Board of Selectmen meeting the other day, it's possibly that might get canceled, Mary, because if they haven't, the state's budget hasn't been approved yet. I think they're kind of thinking that might not be much discussion to be had.
That was going to happen today. I saw it in the news tonight. But anyway.
Yeah. So I think tomorrow, David and Greg were going to connect and see if it's something that we would, have or not. But one of the things, as Lydia mentioned, which was interesting, it got mentioned the other day during the select board meeting, was that the charter school reimbursement, and how Mike Guzzo had explained it before, is that, in certain budget proposals, it might go higher, but then like when you get towards the final, it will kind of like go back or revert back. But in this instance, on the cherry sheets that have been posted, all the revisions, it hasn't gone. It's kind of stayed at, so what we had, what the town had budgeted for was like 192,000. The cherry sheets are showing like 350 or 64,000, but also the assessment has gone up a little bit as well. So it might be somewhat of a wash, but we might, we'll see. So that will be more to come there on the town side. And also just, they did, under the circumstances, they did an amazing job. They had a really big lift today, that day, about doing tax assessment and analyzing new growth for the town. So the town really came together as a team to really continue with town business that it impacts all of us. But it was definitely with tears as they did it. So I just wanted to, acknowledge that as well. It was tough. In our budget subcommittee, we've been talking about the timeline, and so the school committee our subcommittee will be looking at the draft 2, which Brian and Wayne will be presenting to us at our December 2nd meeting. And what?
December 3rd? Oh, your subcommittee meeting on the 2nd. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
I thought you meant the school committee.
No, the subcommittee will be, and then what we will be doing is soliciting feedback from the school committee between that point and the 11th of December, based on what they'll be sharing with us. And so that we will be able to, provide that to Brian and Wayne, because Brian will have to give some information to Greg ahead of time based on charter. December 15th is kind of where a certain deadline is, although we want to make sure that it's not totally different than what we get presented on the 7th. So the school committee will see the final version on the 17th. And that will be where Brian and Wayne are in their festive holiday sweaters in doing so for us. And so that will be the budget request that will go into the town budget proposal. And then that February 6th or the 13th, that hasn't been decided yet, will be that joint budget review, and where that will be presented. And I think that might be it for, there was some, again, new growth. Looks really great. Marijuana is on the horizon, so revenue potentially there. So I know that the town administrator had shared a letter about, no new FTEs, no increased hours and stuff. And we talked about that in our budget subcommittee. And ultimately, our duty as a school committee is to really advocate on behalf of the needs of our students. And so recognizing that there are certain issues or, budgetary matters, there is hope that we might not be as dire as we are. So that, but it's uncertain. So it's not able to be forecasted as much because there's no marijuana place that is open yet. Things kind of get pushed back. It might not happen in, certain year. So that was, that's part of our ongoing conversations. I didn't know if anyone had questions about any budget stuff. And we did talk a little bit about, like curriculum expenses a little bit, and how we can just get a better understanding of what things might be new versus renew. And if there are new elements, how those are, being assessed. Are they replacing something? And, just from the school committee's perspective, we can hear, a little bit more how those, why those decisions are happening. So we can understand, when we're making shifts and just what's working better for our students, and maybe what is not working better for our students. So.
Okay.
And we did talk about, revenue. We are still talking about ways to increase revenue. The pre-K program is an ongoing conversation. The 8th grade to the high school is an ongoing conversation. They're at different momentums right now. So it sounded like the pre-K conversation was more far along than the 8th grade for various reasons. And so nothing has been presented to us, the budget subcommittee, as a recommendation, but those are standing conversations at each of our meetings that we do talk about, and also opportunities that if there are expenses identified that we can, cut back, because ultimately if we expand the pre-K, it's not that it's going to put us in the black for that. It's just to offset the expense of that program.
Right. It's to offset the amount that we subsidize.
Right. And it could be, when you think about it, it could be also increased cost in some areas if there are staffing considerations possibly. So it's not total revenue possibly. But anyway, so those are conversations that are still ongoing that we'll yet to hear about.
All right.
Oh, and just, has anybody have any feedback about how you're getting budget information? I just want to make sure, the minutes, try to share that. We didn't approve any minutes this week, so we didn't share that, but at our next one, so is that helpful? Does that feel like people are getting adequate information? Is there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah, I think it is nice to be able to have it to refer to and just see where things stand. And it reminds me also like to see the process and have it in writing. So even if you talk about it here, there's enough to it that to have it and see that and have that heads up to kind of give myself the scaffolding for it is very helpful.
Great.
All right. Any last comments from Brian or Jen or Jeff? They want to go home or they want to go to bed.
Yeah.
All right. Are we good?
We're good.
Thank you, Natasha, for that. Thank you, Bethlyn and Jessica and Mary for your input and reports. And so I will now entertain a motion to adjourn unless people really want to hang out and party. We could have
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Just cut me right off. Shut up, Lydia. All right. Okay,
No
discussion.
discussion, no discussion. Go
Okay.
in and vote.
Natasha Rivera,
Yes.
Mary Brandley, Bethlyn Houlihan,
Yeah.
and Jessica Clark,
Yes.
Lydia Clancy. Yes.
For
Okay.
the love of humanity, yes.
I know, right?
Good
Good
night.
night,
you.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the 2 audience members who stayed with us this whole time.
Well, you lost one of them. I'm just all right. But Carol's still. All right.